Peacocks are not native, but you have them.
That's our politically incorrect species. That's the one that, and people love seeing them. You can see why.
Oh, they're spectacular.
So,
I mean, how many guys in the state would look at that and say, I wonder what that tastes like?
Yep. I've never had peacocks.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. The Maine Wildlife Park in Gray is home to many native animals. And toward the end of the show, you'll learn why they also have peacocks. Just about 4 years ago, this show paid a visit to the Maine Wildlife Park. Since then, there have been some changes and some improvements. And to be honest, I forgot half of what I learned back then anyway. Time for a revisit. Now, there's one thing that hasn't changed. Kurt Johnson is still superintendent. And together, we're going to walk among the exhibits and meet the animals and learn how this unusual park got started and what keeps it going. There's a sign on I-95 as you approach the exit in Gray announcing that the park is off the exit. But how many listeners have actually ever been there? Not only do they have animals that Maine has now, they have animals that Maine used to have. Come with me on the show today and meet the mountain lions. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. All right, Kurt, it's been 4 years.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, and there's been a lot of changes since you were here last. And
I had been reading up on the changes and said, I guess it's time I need to go back.
Well, I'm excited to show them to you today. You know, it's going to be great to walk around, and as you can see today, we kind of have the whole place to ourselves. There's some people here, but not very many, and this is a function of spring, the season, the weather, too, doesn't help with our attendance right now, but that will soon change.
Well, you have been open for only a few weeks now.
Since April 15th.
Since April 15th.
So it's almost a month.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing. When we first opened, that's spring break, right, for the kids. And we will have thousands. Last year, 10,000 people in the first week that we were open. And so that's always our target, to be open by spring break. And then there's kind of this lull that we're experiencing now. And then the school groups will pick up, and we'll have buses here. We can have up to 20 buses in a day.
In fact, last time we did this, it was full of kids.
Is that right?
And it made for a fun show because you could hear the kids screaming in the background all the time.
Nice background effects,
I wanted to see what was new, so I thought maybe I'd catch it in a day that could be a little slower.
Oh, perfect.
First thing I noticed as we come in is a huge logo for Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Yes.
And we should explain what the relationship as the Maine Wildlife Park is to IF&W.
Well, of course, we're owned and operated by Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and this facility really exists as part of the department's educational mission to educate Maine's public about our fish and wildlife resources and how they manage those resources. So we see people from not only around the state of Maine, but around the country and around the world. During peak season, as many as half of our visitors come from outside of Maine, which is amazing. So, this is part of that message. So people come in, they recognize that this facility is managed by IF&W, and hopefully that sticks with them as they tour the facility and they interpret what they're seeing through the lens of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and again, how they manage all those resources. So.
It's a good way to look at it, because when I think about the Maine Wildlife Park, I'm thinking, we're already full of wildlife statewide. Why have a park? Why don't you just go out and see the real thing?
I couldn't tell you how many people come to this facility, and maybe they're visiting Maine for the first time, or they come up here every year, and they just want to see a moose. And so they're like, show us a moose. Show us a moose. Do you have a moose? And where is it? And we, just point us in the right direction so we can see the moose. And so by far most popular species. So it doesn't matter that this wildlife is all around the state. You could spend a lifetime, just trying to get the photos of the diversity that we have here in the wild, or you could spend a couple hours here and see, over 30 species. So it's a great collection to have in one place. It's great for people who don't live here to see what we have for our fish and wildlife resources. And so it's very popular, and it's definitely a growing place.
I gotta wonder how many native Mainers have not seen a moose.
Well, there's probably a fair number. I'm always amazed how many people haven't seen a black bear in the state of Maine with such a strong population here in Maine. Avid outdoorsmen and women, never seen a bear before, so they enjoy seeing them here. So that's another great example. So
and it's true, the bears are all over the place. But people don't see them.
Yeah, no, they're very elusive, and in this part of the state, you don't see moose a whole lot. If you're
not down around here.
No. So.
So we have walked in the entrance. There's a myriad of sidewalks going different directions, and we're passing the staff-only building with the big I-W logo in front. What is that?
This building is our visitor center, and so it currently houses our snake collection and a couple turtles and amphibians.
So there's snakes in there right now?
There's snakes in there right now. All right, let's go. Some people have the opposite reaction. They just keep going straight. You know, they don't want to see the snakes.
We don't have any poisonous snakes in this state anyway.
We don't. We have 9 species, and 3 of them are on display here right now. We have our garter snakes, which you can see kind of coiled all around here.
They're cuddled
3
up together.
All cuddled up together up on the branch. And then right here we have a northern water snake. And he's right there on the rock behind the water.
I'm not sure I've ever seen one of those in Maine.
I hadn't till this facility. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I see garters all the time.
Yeah.
And this guy is temporarily housed in here. This is a wood turtle, but soon a milk snake is taking his place, and he'll be out in the turtle pond with the other turtles. So. And there's also a grass snake down here, and he's so small that he has a specialized compartment that kind of puts him close to the glass where people can see him. And if you look right in the back there, he's so small, and in a big space, he just disappears. So.
Last one of those I saw was in the talons of a broad-winged hawk.
Is that right?
Not his best day.
I'm sure, right.
And the turtle back there, that's an eastern box turtle too, or what's that?
Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
An eastern box back there.
Yeah, I have not seen any of these turtles. I see the snappers and I see the painteds, and that's about it.
And there's a painted for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we also have a big turtle pond, a big turtle exhibit, but that's not open yet because it's so cool. The turtles haven't really come out of hibernation in full force yet. So.
Okay. No racer snakes in here, huh?
No black racers. Yeah. Not yet, anyway. So
there you go. Because that's what, a threatened species, or I forget what that one is.
Correct. They're protected in Maine, and a lot of snake species don't do well in captivity, and so it's not a coincidence that we have these species that tend to do better in a captive setting. So, and black racers are among those that do not do well. So.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have poisonous snakes, but we do have some mean ones.
No, we had, of course, the venomous timber rattlesnake, which was native to Maine, but considered extirpated. Walk around.
Yep. You know your way around. I'm completely lost.
Well, you know what? I think we'll start this way.
Okay.
Normally, when you tour the park, the map had you go that way, and we have our 6 small mammals up there in the deer exhibit.
But we're going to go rogue and go the other way.
Yeah, we're going to go rogue and run down here. And
Kurt Johnson is superintendent of the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. He's showing me around the park and showing me some of the changes since the last time I visited 4 years ago on this show. We'll take a quick break while we get down the path to our next stop to visit Canada Lynx. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Today's show is coming to you from the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. It's an educational park run by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Kurt Johnson is superintendent, and he's showing me around something he did 4 years ago. And there have been some changes since then. We've now come down the path to an enclosure that contains a pair of Canada lynx. Lynx exhibit.
Yes. So this, I dare say, is new since you were here.
This was not here. Yeah.
And so these are 2 lynx that we acquired a few years ago, right when we built this. And it's been
there they are.
Yeah, right there. And it's a fantastic display, and it really represents the direction we're going in with our new exhibits. Much more spacious, much more natural. I mean, years ago, our enclosures had concrete floors. They were very tight, chain link fencing, chain link viewing, in fact. I mean, that was the barrier between the animals and the public. And now, obviously a much more attractive display, much more representative of their native habitat. We try to put habitat components in that they're associated with the species. So, the spruce and fir here for the Canada lynx. So it's great. The cats love it. All the animals love it. And, of course, our visitors do as well.
The cats look very comfortable. They're curled up in a ball over there. One of them is fidgeting a little bit, but really more yawning. Now they're both yawning.
This is the afternoon siesta, I guess, after eating, and it's not typical for them. They're actually very active, and they tend to be moving around and even interacting with our visitors. It's not uncommon for them to be right up against the glass, putting their paws up against the glass, so they're great.
Is that in a friendly way or a curious way, or why are they doing it?
Curious, I think, would be a better description than friendly.
It's like, what did you bring me? Or
right. And
so what do you feed the cats?
And so the cats are, of course, carnivores. They get a combination of rabbit, chicken, venison every day, and they tend to do very well on that diet. So snowshoe hare, or Canada lynx, of course, are a specialized predator for snowshoe hare, and so rabbit is a big part of their diet here. So
I always thought they were larger and lankier than bobcats and could beat a bobcat, but I've discovered since that I guess the bobcat's tougher.
Tougher?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. So
well then, I'm glad we had this talk.
We've never had ours in a duel with each other, so
you might be able to charge admission
but
for that.
Now I'm curious. So
in this corner we got a lynx. In that corner there's bobcat.
But definitely a little bit bigger on average than a bobcat. Longer legs, and the tufts on the ears are longer. The coloration's a little different, but they're pretty subtle differences. And even though I see them every day, I can honestly say if I saw one run across in front of me in the wild, I might not be able to identify it really quick. You know, I'd have to have a moment for it to pause so I could look at it.
I know I've only ever seen one, and it did take me a moment. I said, man, that is the tallest bobcat I've ever seen. Wait a minute. It was up around Kakajo.
Okay, up north then.
Up north,
so, so it certainly makes sense to see a lynx up there.
Have you ever seen one?
I have never seen a lynx. My grandfather took a picture up in the Allagash last fall of one, but I wasn't in the vehicle when he saw it, so that would have been my first. But they're more and more common, the sightings, so they're definitely have a presence here in Maine.
Bobcat and lynx, that would be the ultimate cage match.
Yes, you have to keep that in mind.
If you ever find you have a budget problem, you can charge admission. All right,
so here are bobcats, and behind us is yet another lynx, and this is the old lynx that we had here for years.
You did. He was here when I was here, I think.
Yes,
he was pacing around a lot then.
And so, like I said, siesta time here. But she basically can't go in with the young ones, and so she's going to be in this facility till someday when she passes away, and this facility would be no more. But they used to live in this. This was the lynx enclosure for years, and this bobcat enclosure used to be our mountain lion exhibit, if you can believe it, years ago.
I think you had just lost the mountain lion when I last visited.
That would make sense. So we've got one right over here, and there's a second one I'm not seeing right now, and yet another one, a third one that's in out back recovering from an illness right now. So should be reintroduced soon, but to the rest of the cats. But
so the one that's looking at us right now is just sort of squinting like a common house cat. Just kind of,
it's amazing how much they resemble a house cat at times, and but certainly not in the wild in terms of their behavior and stuff. These guys are semi-domesticated. They've been in captivity their whole lives, raised here, so they can be more friendly than you might expect. But
when somebody, a zookeeper, goes into do they get to handle them at all? The cats are just...
We don't handle them, but they're not aggressive either. So in the case of the bobcats, we will put down their food and water every day without locking them off in a separate compartment, and it's safe to do so. So they're definitely a good... these guys in particular are great individuals to have in captivity as display animals. So
the lynx and the bobcat are side by side in their exhibits, and they must know each other is there.
Oh yeah, they're all aware. I mean, there's 3 mountain lions in behind, and so the cats all have this little community in this complex, and they're all very much aware of each other's presence. So.
And it doesn't bother them to be that close.
No, not at all.
On the other hand, if you put snowshoe hare exhibit right next to the cats,
that might be stressful, especially for the hare.
The hare is losing its hair. Oh my!
But on down to the mountain lions here.
Okay. So where do these lions come from? Because we don't have them.
Right. Of course, they're an extirpated species. Historically, we had a population here in Maine, which is why we have them on display here. But because we don't have a population, we have to bring these cats in from elsewhere. And 2 of them are from Montana. They are orphaned from out there. And then there's also one from Wisconsin.
Now, this is a case where somebody had to find a home for them, and you had
absolutely,
the opportunity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were non-releasable, so being released into the wild was not an option for them. So that's why they came to a place like ours. And so we have one right here in the cave.
Oh, there it is, watching me closely.
And we'll see if we can find another one here.
Yeah. That cat's expression says, "I think I can take that big one."
It's a little intimidating, isn't it?
I would not want to see that without this much glass between me and it.
Let's see here. It's amazing how they can hide.
I mean, we are literally looking into the exhibit through clear glass in an enclosure that's the size of a swimming pool, maybe. There's 3 cats in here, and both of us can only find one.
There's 2 in this compartment, and there's one in there. Now, the one on the left is actually in her den right now, but she's usually out. She's very social. And these guys, not as social, but still great display animals.
Here's the other one behind the tree up there. And that one is sound asleep.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this afternoon time is time to take a nap, But yeah, so normally they are quite active, and it's fascinating for people to be able to see an animal that they'll never see in the wild, especially here in Maine or even elsewhere. So they like seeing these big cats for sure.
So there are chipmunks running out all over the place. Do they ever accidentally run into a cage and regret it?
Yes, it does happen. It does. Not all the time, but it happens. So.
What a tragic mistake a chipmunk could make.
Yes.
It's like all of a sudden, damn, this is the bobcat exhibit.
Yeah, we can try up here. We can see which end we have a better view.
Gray fox.
Gray fox and red fox. So we've got a red fox right down there under the pine tree. Let's see if there's any activity here on the gray side.
I have never seen a gray fox, and I really want to.
Well, we right over here, Bob. Let's keep walking along here. It's bedded right down. There's actually 2 of them down there.
Now, what's the range of these guys in Maine? Somebody saw one up in the Bangor area like a year or 2 ago. So
southern and central Maine.
Yeah.
And so there, of course, there is overlap with the gray fox, with the red fox. I mean. But you're much more apt to see these guys down here, south central Maine, and you could easily see red fox obviously down here as well, but also in the northern part of the state. Yeah. So they don't have the same range that the red fox have in Maine.
And these guys can climb trees.
These guys can climb trees. Technically, reds can too, as our guys actually sometimes demonstrate.
Is that right?
They actually like to hang out in this crab apple tree here, right at the top, like it's a little bed for them. So they're capable, but it is the grays that are known for climbing. Much more so in the wild.
I'm going to guess the foxes get used to people pretty quick because they denned under my garage for 2 seasons in a row and got used to me really easy.
It does happen. You see more and more of these human-wildlife interactions, it seems, especially in this part of the state. And we do get people that call in with fox complaints. I have foxes in my backyard or around my pets, my children, whatever it is, and it just makes them less than comfortable.
My neighbor fed them, and I thought that was not a good idea.
You're correct. Right. So there is one more red in here. So there's 2 grays and there's 2 reds.
Okay.
Today we've got just a glimpse of
this. There goes the gray
one.
moving now.
Oh, there you go.
They really are distinctly different. They are gray.
They are. Yeah, a much different coloration. They tend to be a smaller fox on average than the red fox. Let's move on.
We're moving on to the bear's den. And even from here, I can see that it is completely redesigned and rebuilt. But the 450-pound bear that I met 4 years ago is still there, and he's only gotten bigger. I'm at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray, and Park Superintendent Kurt Johnson is showing me around and giving you an invitation to come on down and take a look this summer. Give me a minute, and I'll meet you at the Bears when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine, Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. You've undoubtedly seen the signs along the highways you pass the exit in Gray, the Maine Wildlife Park. It's a park full of exhibits of animals that live in Maine, or did. The animals on exhibit are all critters that came to the park because they were orphaned or injured and couldn't be released into the wild. Park Superintendent Kurt Johnson is showing me around.
So another new exhibit or a change since you were here last time would be the bear enclosure. Now it's the same bear enclosure, but it's been drastically renovated. One of the changes is we have this new observation area. Before you were viewing them through two layers of chain link, actually. And now you are viewing the bears through glass, and they can actually come right up to the base of the viewing area. So,
and do they?
They do, absolutely. Our bears are like pigs. They'll eat and eat and eat. And so we have feed machines here, and it's not uncommon for them to spend a good part of the day right at the base of those feed machines.
So this bear is looking up at us expectingly like we may throw him something.
Well, we have this launcher right here, Bob.
Oh, okay.
So this is very popular. You put your quarter in, and then you give it a good hammer, and it throws the food. And, of course, just because we had this wall didn't mean we wanted to stop people from feeding them altogether. So this was our solution, so they could still feed them through the glass. And the bears are all too happy to adjust to the change.
Now, is this a Maine bear here?
It's not a Maine black bear. Okay. It is a black bear, but it would be representative of a western variety of black bear. Yep. That's why it has that reddish color. So a Maine black bear wouldn't have this coloration, and even though it's certainly possible for a Maine black bear to be this large, this is 450 pounds, this guy is, the average Maine black bear would be more around 200 pounds. So his size, his coloration are not necessarily representative of an average Maine black bear. We do have another one in here who is much more so representative. She's very black, and her size is a more typical. People don't realize that they're one of the biggest killers of moose calves in Maine. Black bears are.
So do these guys actually sleep through the winter very much?
They do, yeah. During the 5 months that we're closed, they kind of retreat back into these dens here, these man-made dens that we have for them, and we don't generally hear a peep from them for 5 months.
So you have geese and ducks walking around. I presume these are wild and they just adopted you?
It's a mixture, actually. There are some in that category that are just wild. They can come and go as they please. But then there's also non-releasables that have been specifically placed here because they have a wing injury. They're not flighted or whatever the case might be. And we actually overwinter them here. We bring them inside during the winter months. And during the summer, they can roam around 40 acres, living a very natural lifestyle, which is great. So.
And at the end of their lives, they go into the bobcat cage.
Not quite, but
just trying to be efficient here.
I'm learning what your interests are through this interview.
Let's just call it the cycle of nature.
Right.
Well, Lucy, it's time for that long walk to the bobcat cage.
There's a coyote that just here she is.
Here.
So obviously coyotes major player in our ecosystem now here in Maine. And it's amazing how many people will look at this animal and they're not quite sure what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're looking at a fox or a wolf. And so, that's really what's so great about this facility is people actually learn what's out there in Maine for our native wildlife and the differences between the species. So I was talking before about the popularity of the moose and how many people come here just to see a moose at the park, and that's really our claim to one of our claims to fame is you're guaranteed to see a moose here, and we have 4 currently, and makes for great viewing opportunities. We have 2 cows and 2 bulls, and this is one of those cows right here.
Now, moose are supposedly notoriously difficult to keep in an enclosure.
They are. They eat a lot of browse on a daily basis. So coming up with that natural quantity of browse that they can eat is a challenge. And if you think of it, even on a large property, if you're stripping certain species, of the vegetation on your property, you're going to quickly deplete that resource. And so that's a challenge that we run into here. So we do have different sources. We have arborists that will drop off their trimmings and clippings from their work, and that's very helpful. And there's other organizations as well that have brought in browse too. So, and then we also this property is 250 acres, so we go all over it looking for browse for them to try to give them some every day. And they also get a grain. It's actually pelletized aspen, and so that's important part of the diet for these guys in captivity.
So this one is shedding its coat like
she is. You know, moose don't look great this time of the year. You've seen many times on the side of the road. And
talk about ugly.
the spring moose is not an attractive moose, but
it's shedding like a border collie in the living room rug.
Absolutely. You know, but the moose do very well in captivity here. We have a bull that's 13 years old, and that's very old for captivity.
You don't really see these in zoos very often because they are kind of difficult to keep.
They are difficult to keep, and of course their natural range in North America, doesn't go down very far. And some of
in fact, we're in it.
right.
Maybe into Boston.
Right. So like you said, you often don't see them in a lot of zoos. Yeah. So. All the more reason that they're so popular here. You know, people have usually never seen one when they're visiting from out of state, and they love to catch that glimpse here.
So will this one develop a good rack for the fall?
Well, this is a cow.
Well, then this one won't.
Not this one, no. But over here we have our other cow. So there again, no rack.
No rack.
So let's see if we can see the two bulls. One has a rack that's quite well developed, or in process. It's growing quickly, and the other one is just starting.
And obviously they're used to people because they're just sort of looking up at us.
Oh yeah, they're not the slightest bit intimidated. So this is our younger bull, and you can see his antlers popping out there. And the 13-year-old we can hopefully catch a glimpse of when we go around there, and you can see his antlers are growing.
I have to wonder how a moose is going to hide.
Yeah.
Maybe he's standing behind a tree.
Usually what they do is they bed down, and it's amazing how they disappear when they're bedded down, even in an enclosure of this size.
Oh, out in the woods, I've almost stepped on them twice.
Is that right?
They come right up out of the muck that they've been wallowing in on a hot day, and they're right next to you. And I mean, we're both dropping pellets.
You're right.
It's really startling when you're that close and didn't know it.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what we have here. And we might have gone past him, not even knowing it, if he was bedded down there. Oh, no, he's right here, Bob. He's showing us his better side.
Oh, yeah, we can look at his butt from this angle.
Maybe he'll turn around.
Is that the feeding trough? What is
it? That is, yeah. That's where they get their grain every day, or at least the ones in this side, in this compartment. And you can see those antlers already are coming in strong. So, come July or so, those will be full grown, and always very nice to see in full velvet,
Now, do people ever get past this wood rail and up to the fence and bother the moose?
They do. I mean, no more than any other species. I told you about the enthusiasm for moose, so everyone wants a picture, and sometimes people are tempted to go over the public barrier to catch a picture.
A selfie.
The fence. Yeah, exactly.
A selfie with a moose.
So what happens, but generally speaking, no one does anything harmful to the moose or to themselves. Generally they don't put themselves at risk, thank goodness. So.
Yeah, really. Because it's not like you have guards at all these pens.
No.
In fact, as we walk to the next destination, you can use probably all the volunteers you can get.
We have over 200 volunteers here at the park. And within that group of volunteers is the Friends of the Maine Wildlife Park. They're a 501c3, and they've been active here for over 25 years now. And during that time, the projects that they've completed, and just in general, the operation of the facility that they've allowed, by being present, have allowed to continue, it's just an amazing thing. So we rely on them extensively. They contribute over 9,000 hours a year.
Oh, geez.
About 40% of our annual labor contribution comes from volunteers. So it's very much a volunteer-dependent facility. That's why we're still here. That's why we're able to operate.
It's the Maine Wildlife Park. Superintendent Kurt Johnson is my guide, and we're getting the inside story in a park that showcases Maine's wildlife to residents, tourists, and about 20,000 school kids a year. It's been here a long time, and in a moment, we'll get the backstory on how it got here and why it's still here. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. If you get out in the woods of Maine, you can often stumble upon some interesting critters. Well, not everybody is so lucky, and some people aren't all that comfortable getting up into those logging roads north of Millinocket, or the Western Mountains, or interior Washington County. For all those folks, there is the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. We're in the middle of a tour as Park Superintendent Kurt Johnson shows me around. So how did this get started, Kurt?
Well, this facility started in 1931, and it was a ringneck pheasant farm, and it operated in that capacity for decades until the early 80s when the pheasant program was terminated. And it was at that time that the facility really had to redefine itself. And over the 80s, course of the 80s, it was threatened with closure many times. And then in 91, closure seemed like a certain thing. Yeah. And it was then that local citizens got together. They raised over 30,000 signatures. And in response, the Maine State Legislature came up with this self-sufficiency mandate. Mm-hmm. And we've been operating like that ever since. But again, relying extensively on volunteers, the friends, to keep this place going.
Yep. Now, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife does a lot of education of the public. There's a lot of exhibits at state parks during the winter. They go around and do various things. In fact, there's coming up this weekend, I think there's an archery thing out of Bryant Pond.
Correct.
So all this is going on from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and how many people actually know how much education you do?
Well, it's true that the department does so much and has its hand in so many different things around the state, and people don't realize that. Just here at the park in one location, of course, we have programs here every single week, every Saturday from now through September. There's a guest organization, presenter taking place here at the park, and that's in addition to all of our weekly programs and tours and lectures that we do. So it's just amazing the wealth of educational programs that mm-hmm. takes place just right here at this one facility. And there's so many opportunities for Mainers in particular who live in this area, to have a season pass and come take advantage of all those programs. And
as we already know, school kids come in here by the busload
daily. They do, absolutely. We see over 20,000 school kids a year. And, what a great opportunity for them. And in this part of the state, almost all of them at some point in their schooling have made a field trip to the Maine Wildlife Park. And so it has a tremendous impact on our young people all over the region, and adults as well. People don't realize that adults still are the largest sales category here at the park, far more adults than children. And so the place has a tremendous educational impact.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is a big enclosure. I'm going to guess deer.
Yes, this is our white-tailed deer enclosure, and what we should probably do is walk the length, and this is a fun game to see how many deer you can spot, and because if there was ever a landscape that was viewer-friendly, it's this one, because you don't have the understory, you don't have any vegetation to really conceal the deer, but just their natural camouflage makes mm-hmm. them disappear. And so I don't know how many people will walk this whole thing and say, I didn't see any deer, but they walked past 8 of them. So,
well, I'm standing from probably the best vantage point right here next to the fence, and at first glance I saw 0. I can now make out 1
down the side.
Down there, and he's the color of the leaves he's lying on. Blends right in.
Oh, now you're challenging me.
Yeah, that's because you're blocked by the tree. See that big, that white thing on the bank?
Oh, well, the white deer. That's no fair.
Oh, that's
we have a piebald deer in here, so that is the easiest one to spot. I see. Let's find our brown deer.
That one, well, he's in front of it.
You saw a brown one.
I saw him before. I saw the white. I said, either that's garbage in there or snow hasn't melted.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And what's so funny is in the winter it's just the opposite. The brown ones stick out like a sore thumb. The white one disappeared. So she definitely has her moments, but. People love seeing this piebald deer.
So where did the piebald deer come from?
So it came from Maine, from the down east region, I believe, if memory serves. And, we have them here in Maine. They're just not very common. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen one in the wild.
I have not either.
So she was my first here in captivity. But, she's already been here a few years and very popular, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. So... We have albinos here, too, of a few different species. We have an albino woodchuck and an albino raccoon, and same thing. There's just so much novelty there. People are so intrigued. What is this thing that they're looking at? And so I mentioned we have an albino raccoon, and of course he's not going to present himself. We have a regular raccoon right up there on the top of the log.
Yeah.
And our albino, if you peer right inside that
yeah,
he's looking at you with those red eyes. So
he's not even getting up on his haunches to look at us.
No, but this is a bad time of day. This isn't typical for him. He's usually very curious and wondering if there's any handouts available. So. And then our woodchucks, we have lots of woodchucks, but they live a very subterranean lifestyle.
Yeah.
So seeing them is very opportunistic. Usually you just see heads sticking up in all the holes. So.
Yep, try as I might, I'm not getting very excited about seeing a woodchuck.
How come?
Maybe people from away. Oh my God, Mom, look, a woodchuck.
So we have a beaver up here, and the beavers, this is our second beaver that we've had here at the park over the last few years. Just wildly popular. People love to see them playing in the water and doing their thing. And you can see what she's done to all the sticks in here. She's done what beavers do, and we're hoping that over time, she's new to our facility, we're hoping that she will have some dam building interest, and that's really what this little flowage is about. They're drawn to the sound of running water, trickling water, and they start damming up right there. So we're hoping that's what she'll do.
They are the Army Corps of Engineers of the animal world.
Amazing how they can alter an environment is just fascinating. This guy, our fisher, is currently not on display. He had surgery recently. He should be out next week, but people love seeing a fisher because that's another one that you usually don't see in the wild, even though they're very much present. So,
sneaky. Very sneaky.
Skunks, like the woodchucks. I'm not sure how many people will get excited to see a skunk, but there's actually two of them right there.
Yeah.
And their scent glands have been removed.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. That's very important.
But on the other hand, would they get so used to people here they wouldn't bother?
It's possible, I guess, but I think they would still release at times. I wouldn't want a skunk that was equipped. So,
now I'm guessing people can't walk dogs in here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just dogs that are service dogs.
Yeah. Right.
So, so we have a couple porcupines here, and
there's one
hiding behind. Oh, okay, there we go.
Not an uncommon sight either.
No, not uncommon at all. I can't tell you how many people, if you just kind of hang around this area and you listen to parents talking to their children, telling them how they throw their quills. That's got to be one of the most common misconceptions, is that porcupines will throw their quills.
So do you actually try to talk parents out of misinformation, or do you just let it pass?
If we get asked, a lot of times we get asked that question, of course, and we love educating people in those moments. But no, we don't stop everybody if we're, just...
I mean, what's good? What is the good of having a kid if you can't lie to him?
Right. We don't want to seem like jerks, So
that's right. I don't want to spoil a good story. The kid will find out when he's 18. You mean they don't throw their quills?
Chances are they'll just be telling the grandkids that
that's right.
So,
just one more piece of misinformation from your parents. We're getting a tour of the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. Park Superintendent Kurt Johnson is leading the way. Consider this an invitation to visit this summer. Just get off at the Gray exit of I-95 and follow the signs. Now here's a question. Since all these critters in cages are native to Maine, do some of the local wild critters come to visit? Well, the answer is at the Wild Bird exhibit. I'll meet you there in about 3 minutes. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. We're at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray getting a tour from Park Superintendent Kurt Johnson. We're now at the Wild Bird exhibit, and this is strange. There are vultures circling overhead, and more vultures sitting in the trees just above the exhibit of caged vultures. Wild birds visiting the caged ones. That's weird, Kurt.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
They use this tree to roost a lot?
Yeah, well, they visit our captive guys, right? Yeah. So we have 3 of them in here, and, 4 if you include this guy to the left. So, yeah, it's always been the case. We have always had wild ones that come in and talk and interact with our guys. So, But these guys have quite a presence now. You know, you see them,
do.
You see them so often, just soaring above. And
growing up in the county, you never saw them, right?
No, that's correct.
That's right.
That's correct.
So how did you end up with an exhibit of vultures?
Well, of course, they're now native to Maine, and people are intrigued by them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they make a great species and another great educational ambassador. You know.
Yeah. So peacocks are not native, but you have them.
That's our politically incorrect species. That's the one that you know, and people love seeing them. You can see why.
Oh, they're spectacular.
So
I mean, how many guys in the state would look at that and say, "I wonder what that tastes like"?
Yep. I've never had peacock. So we have our barn.
There's our barn.
Yep. Yeah, right up there on the right.
Yep.
And
a whole line of mice down there waiting for him. Apparently he's not very hungry.
He's going to wait till his moment.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit later. So a lot of the raptors do that. They'll kind of stare at the mice until the later hours of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a screech owl in here, which is such a small owl. It's always a challenge to find him, and especially if he's decided to hide in that little hole there, which he sometimes does. And then we have our red-tailed hawks and our rough-legged hawk.
Mm-hmm.
And we got two red tails, and then our rough-legged in the back corner.
Oh, yeah. Where did he come from?
He has been here since before my time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what facility he originally came from.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a red-shouldered hawk in the back left corner.
I mean, that one at least breeds here. The rough-legged really are from Quebec.
Right. A great horned owl in the back right corner, kind of looking at you with that ticked-off face.
Yeah. Nothing on God's green earth will mess with one of those guys. Yes. Ferocious.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
And then we have our barred owls here in the back left corner, side by side.
Well, that's a pretty couple.
Yeah, they're a nice pair. And so then we have our very popular bald eagle and golden eagle. And
okay, where'd the golden come from?
The golden actually came from out west, from California.
Yeah.
She flew into a windmill or a wind turbine. And so she was injured from that and non-releasable for the rest of her days, so that's why she came here. And this eagle fell out of her nest as an eaglet years ago, and she's been here ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yep, missing a wing, but otherwise comfortable.
Yeah, and part of the wing, just a partial amputation, and so she's not flighted, but has had a great life here. And there's our golden on the ground.
Mm-hmm. They used to nest in Maine. I guess I'm not aware of any nesting pair now.
Currently, I don't know. I think when I started here, there was a nesting pair, if memory serves, and I'm not sure if that's still.
It was good 15 years ago, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
So
about the time you started, probably.
That was the end of the Goldens, huh?
Yeah. Still a few in Atlantic, Canada, and the rest are all out west. I've seen exactly one in the state.
Have you?
Yeah.
I've never seen one.
I was in Danforth, Vanceboro. I was in Vanceboro, and it flew over.
Go down here and cut across the lawn.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will see a juvenile bald eagle, and they'll say, I saw a golden eagle. We get that a lot, you know.
And then they'll call me and tell me.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
And so our turtles are waiting for more sunshine.
So where are they at the moment?
Well, we do have some that will hibernate at the bottom of the pond naturally, and those would be the painted turtles. And then we have some that we artificially hibernate inside in a refrigerator, if you can believe it. You saw our wood turtle earlier, and then our box turtle. And so we put our woods and our boxes out later. And
so an icebox turtle.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just funny.
Yes. And the snakes hibernate in the basement. So. Okay.
So as we continue to walk, why don't you give me your hours, your season, your prices?
Sure. So the park opened for the season on April 15th, and once we open, we're open every single day through November 11th, through Veterans Day.
That's a very long season.
It is 7 months, every weekend, every holiday, rain or shine. We never close, except in the evenings. And so it is a nice long season, which is fantastic. And during the season, we have special events that start off the first weekend in May and go all the way through September. And those events range from pretty small-scale presentations to large-scale performances, like some of the concerts that we have, the Native American powwow, etc. And so those are a fantastic opportunity that are no additional charge to our visitors. Our general admission fees always apply, which is $7.50 for adults, $5.50 for kids, and children 3 and under are free. We have veteran discounts, and we have group discounts. It's a very popular place for birthday parties. Last year we hosted over 75 birthday parties here.
You ever do any weddings?
We're doing our first wedding. Our first wedding in October. So it's becoming more and more a popular place for companies to bring their employees for appreciation days, for work days, for all kinds of gatherings and functions. So our hours every day are from 9:30 to 4:30. Those are the gate hours. Once you're into the park, you can stay till 6 o'clock. Huh. And our hours are reduced in the fall, mid-October. We close an hour earlier.
Well, the sun tends to go down a little earlier.
Exactly. It's just pitch dark in here by 5 at that time. So
does the coyote start to howl at all at night, or do you know?
Yeah, she does rarely. She does more barking than howling, I think. But she does howl. So it is fun being in here at night. We do have a night event or two every season. This year we have our planetarium night hike in July, and that will feature Northern Stars Planetarium. They're going to come in with a portable planetarium to do multiple showings throughout the evening. So we have a lot of really neat educational events.
So where on the web would somebody find all this information?
MaineWildlifePark.com.
MaineWildlifePark.com is where you find it on the web. Gray is where you find it on the map, and all you have to do to get there is get off I-95 at the Gray exit and follow the signs. But thanks to Kurt Johnson, Park Superintendent, for today's tour. If you want to take this radio tour again, this show and all previous shows are on the web at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns next Saturday morning at 9, Sunday morning at 8, brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.